lecture series on applied linguistics and TESOL. This session is in addition to this Zoom meeting. We are also going live from ULAB's Facebook page. So you can also join from there as well. All right, so let me just begin with a background of this entire thing. I think I'll be very brief on that note. All right, so from the Department of English and Humanities, we were thinking, in fact, planning to organize something after the grand success of Entangled English's international conference. So we actually came up with the idea that we'll be holding something nationwide this time, and renowned people of applied linguistics and TESOL, and where we can actually have a conversation with each other. And on that note, we thought about a conference as well. Well, a conference is a good option, obviously. We did not go for a conference this time because the type of conversation we wanted to held this time, actually, we wanted to have some sort of long-standing and also sustainable impact. We discussed about this earlier, and then actually we thought about this lecture series, which we can take up to even 1 year, and where we can discuss and have academic transaction of this type, which is in fact very difficult carry out in a conference, because as you know, back-to-back sessions normally we have in a conference where we are all the stakeholders, including speakers, then listeners, audience, and organizers. We are overwhelmed by the prolonged sessions that we normally have in a conference. So we thought about this one. So the goal of this DEH Applied Linguistics and TESOL lecture series, let me just be very brief. I'll be very brief this time. Just let me explain this. So the goal of the DEH lecture series on applied linguistics and TESOL is to provide professional learning opportunities for applied linguistics and TESOL practitioners and researchers in Bangladesh. As we know, we all know, we all actually part of this academia, and we know our culture. We hardly get time, right? We hardly get time for this, for professional development of ourselves. So as we know, rightly, as I was pointing out, we have hectic academic schedule, right? So we are unable to devote time to such dedicated learning opportunities. And that's why we can't keep up to date on current research findings in the field of study, whether it's applied linguistics or TESOL. As a result, often we fail to contextualize and imply important research findings in our teaching as well as in our research, right? This lecture series hopefully will provide opportunities for young researchers and practitioners to broaden their knowledge of applied linguistics and research, and develop research-informed teaching skills and practices. On the other hand, just let me, on personal note, what I have found over the years, in last 5 to 7 years, I have been a full-time researcher. I worked in the context of Bangladesh. What I also have found that as a researcher, often we struggle to disseminate our work to a larger academic community in Bangladesh. Whatever we do, normally I consider myself a Bangladesh-based researcher, and and that's why perhaps my leadership will come mostly from context. But it's very difficult to disseminate our work among the academics here. Perhaps our work, that's why I was saying, perhaps our works are more relevant for our local community, teachers, researchers, and our postgrad students. So that's why a conversation like this, a lecture series like this can benefit us both, being a researcher and practitioner, as well as people who will come and join this lecture series. It will be beneficial for us, for both of us. I mean, that would be a great thing. So in a nutshell, this is the goal of our lecture series. So I hope more people will join, and we can have an academic conversation here in this lecture series and throughout the year. I mean, this year and next year as well. So I now would like to welcome our honorable head of the Department of English and Humanities, Associate Professor Arifa Ghani Rahman, ma'am, to say a few words and inaugurates lecture series officially. Ma'am.
Thank you so much, Pure. So let me, thank you. So it is a great pleasure for me indeed to welcome you all to this inaugural episode of our planned year-long series on Applied Linguistics and TESOL. And I am delighted that the program has garnered the attention of interested researchers and teachers from not only all over Bangladesh, but from different parts of the world as well. We have participants from Dhaka, Chittagong, Rajshahi, Noshingdi, Sarpur, Kumilla, Sylhet, Jamalpur, Noakhali, Pabna, and so on, and all from different schools, colleges, and universities. Globally, we have registered participants from the UK, US, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia, Philippines. We have participants from departments of math, business, and Malayalam as well, in addition to the expected crowd from the English or language department. I apologize if I missed any region, but I mention all this to give you a sense of the star power of our speakers, as well as the importance of the field in which they've built their expertise. I'm not a linguist, but on a personal level, as someone who has had to negotiate with and around language at different times in different contexts, I am keenly aware of the nuances of language and its social, political, cultural, and literary significance. So I'm eagerly looking forward to today's talk as well as the series as a whole. I'd like to thank our speakers, Professor Shaila Sultana and Professor Shahriar Haque, for taking the time out of their many commitments and being with us today. Your work in this field has been phenomenal, and I know that today's talks will be no less so. I'd like to thank Mushir Rahman, Senior Lecturer at the Department, for planning and coordinating today's program and the series as a whole. I have to say that I'm very proud to have Mashur as my colleague because he inspires me passion for and dedication to research. And it shows through the large number of publications he already has in well-reputed and ranked international journals, which has garnered him a ranking by AD Scientific Index as the third in Bangladesh in the field of language and literature, and eighth in Bangladesh in the field of social sciences. So I know that Mushur will not say all this himself, so I had to say it. And with that, let me welcome you once again to the inaugural episode of the DEH Lecture Series on Applied Linguistics and TESOL. I hope you will join us in all future episodes as well. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And thanks for the introduction as well. I mean, you have written a very nice introduction for me as well. Thank you. Okay, all right. So, okay. So now we need to commence our lecture. And as you are aware already, that we have Professor Shaila Sultana and Mr. Muhammed Haque for our first episode in this lecture series. Now, our first speaker, Professor Shaila Sultana, though she needs no introduction. I mean, she is one of the most renowned sociolinguists in Bangladesh and perhaps in the world as well. But I would like to take the honor of introducing her now. So Professor Shaila Sultana, the former head Department of English Language, Institute of Modern Languages, University of Dhaka, has been educated in Jahangirnagar University, Monash College, London, and University of Technology, Sydney. Her recent publications include a co-authored book, Pop Culture, Voice, and Linguistic Diversity, and book chapters in Language, Digital Communication, and Society. Peter Lang, published from Macmillan, Palgrave, and Macmillan, USA. Critical inquiries in the studies of sociolinguistics of globalization from multilingual matters, USA. Language and culture on the margins, Routledge. She is also the chief editor of Routledge Handbook of English Language Education in Bangladesh. I mean, one of the finest works in the field of education in Bangladesh until now. I mean, Professor Shaila Sultana and her colleagues, they compiled some of the best works on English language education in Bangladesh. So she has authored articles in renowned international applied linguistics journals. She is one of the editorial board of, she is on the editorial board of Language in Society, Cambridge University Press, Journal of English Medium Instruction, John Benjamin's, Journal of Asia TEFL, Crossing, Delta, and other journals, and edited a special issue on Australian Review of Applied Linguistics titled Translingual Practices Entangled with Semiotized Space and Time, co-edited by Professor Shaila Sultana, will be published soon in the end of 2021, this year, at the end of this year. So, ma'am, I would like to welcome you for your talk.
Thank you very much, Monsieur. It's 6:17 and I have 35 minutes, right? So I will finish.
Yes.
Yes, I'll finish at 6:52.
All right, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Okay. Sometimes I tend to talk too much. That's why I'm, marking my boundary of time. All right. Okay. Yes. So welcome to my presentation, and the title of my presentation is World Englishes and English Language Teaching in South Asia. The purpose of my presentation will be to share my critical reflection on the historical development, research approaches, and English language teaching in relation to world Englishes in South Asia. In order to do so, I will present the major research studies on world Englishes from 1980s to current work in progress, paying attention to the historical, political, social, and cultural significances of world Englishes. I'll discuss the ways in world Englishes in different countries of South Asia have evolved. I will also explain the discursive realization of ideologies and its impact on status of world Englishes and functions of IELTS in different South Asian countries. So what are world Englishes? World Englishes refer to the study of English, including the regional Englishes of Britain, to varieties of English in the US, Australia, New Zealand, and to the Englishes of East and West, Africa, and many Asian societies, as well as the study of discourses and genres in those contexts where English is regarded as a second or foreign language. More attention is given to the non-native varieties of Englishes developed outside the countries where English is a native language. These Englishes are distinctly different from the native ones traditionally used as the mother tongues because of the historical, political, social, and cultural realities of the context, reflected in the linguistic, semantic, syntactical, and pragmatic features of these Englishes. World Englishes were initially divided into groups according to the geographical locations, associated political history, and life trajectories of the English language in these specific geographical locations. For example, inner circle Englishes like British, American, and Australian Englishes, spoken in countries where English is the first language of the majority of the population. Outer circle Englishes like Indian, Nigerian, and Singaporean Englishes, spoken generally as a second language, or expanding circle Englishes like those in China, Japan, and Russia, where English is regarded as a foreign language. The South Asian Englishes seem to be located in the expanding circle, where some have already received distinct status of world Englishes, on empirical studies, such as these are also, some of them are also located in the outer circle, such as Indian English. Bangladeshi English seem to be emerging with its own characteristics, even though it may not be claimed as a variety of English as such, because of lack of longitudinal and cross-sectional studies. However, linguistic and cultural elements have been observed in the English of the Bangladeshi speakers. The term world Englishes, coined first and later on extensively researched by Kachru, gives recognition to the fact that there are various models of Englishes existing in different cultures, and that they're equally acceptable and have equal status, similar to the ones traditionally accepted as the native varieties of English in the inner circle. The nativized and localized variations meet the communication needs of the local context, owned by the users of the variety of English. Kachru argued in favor of a paradigm that would recognize the pluralism in Englishes, both at the level of theory and practice and application, and relentlessly advocated socially realistic approaches to world Englishes. The research in favor of establishing world Englishes as legitimate languages has been carried out till today. Tupers and Rugby in 2015 stated that there is no one English, but many Englishes. No one has exclusive rights to the language. Anyone who speaks, it has the right to own it. The norms of use are multilingual norms, and the strategies to teach English are also multilingual in nature. The English language is deeply embedded in the multilingual and multicultural lives of its speakers. As Kachru's predecessors, they also critique the term native speakers associated with countries in the inner circle, as the term de-enfranchises the majority of English speakers today. Thus, world Englishes as a paradigm, on the one hand, promotes the new identity for the newly developed and emerging Englishes and their viability as language. On the other hand, challenges native speakerism associated with the native speakers in the inner circle. South Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Afghanistan, and Maldives have a precarious relationship with world Englishes. The region is fertile ground of world Englishes, and the oldest world Englishes, Indian Englishes, in fact, came out from one of the South Asian countries, India. These countries are all historically multilingual, with the presence of 700 spoken languages in their multilingual ecology. Amongst these languages, 454 were found to be actively spoken in India, 122 in Nepal, 77 in Pakistan, 42 in Afghanistan, and 14 in Bangladesh. The communities in these countries in reality are linguistically fluid, with blurry boundaries between many languages and dialects. For example, Hindi is spoken about 550 million people in Asia. Hindi and Urdu, the national and official language of Pakistan, share lots of similarities with different sources of lexicons, from Arabic, Persian, and Sanskrit, and different written forms in Arabic and in the script originally used for Sanskrit, Devanagari. Bangla is used in different capacities, not only in Bangladesh, but also in other parts of the multilingual India, including West Bengal, Tripura, Assam, Andaman, and Nicobar Islands, where it is the second most spoken language. As the language ecologies are multilingual, varied, and diverse, it is expected that the communities will be plurilingual and super diverse in practice. In reality, in fact, these communities show plurilingual ethos in their day-to-day language practices. But these communities are very proactive, unfortunately proactive, in promoting linguistic hegemony and exclusivist language policies that marginalize lesser powerful languages and ethnic indigenous languages. Research as well shows that the communities are multilingual in practice, but in policies, in effect, are monolingual, nationalistic, and chauvinistic, and communities are fretted with monolingual biases, especially towards the powerful languages, such as to those are declared as the national language and the official language. English as a language of the British colonizers with more than 200 years of history in the Indian subcontinent, now as a language of globalization and international communication, and finally, as a language of new liberal lifestyle, has become one of the most powerful languages in South Asia. World Englishes has managed to draw the attention of the academia. Researchers since Khosrow identified the nativeness of the localized English in the 1980s. Since then, the existence and the vitality of localized Englishes have been thoroughly researched. 3 specific approaches have been observed in research. First, the feature-based approach, describing the typical features of phonetics and phonology, morphology, semantics, syntax, and pragmatics, with specific reference to standard English observable in the inner circle. Second, understanding the nature of typical features of world Englishes through a comparative descriptive framework. And thirdly, going beyond the native speaker centeredness, and exploring the transnational attraction, the appropriation of components of Englishes for whatever communicative purposes at hand, unbounded by distinctions of norms, nations, or varieties. Khosrow, the eminent and leading scholar of the study of world Englishes and Asian Englishes, first identified the distinct features of Indian Englishes, that is the Indianness of Indian English. Later on his research studies, his main objective was to show the functional nativeness, that is local linguistic and cultural features in non-native Englishes, demonstrating their efficacy in articulation of identities and in genuine creative elements in the localized nativized Englishes. He declared these new varieties of Englishes as liberated English, within quotation, molded, reshaped, articulated, redesigned, quotation end, with new forms of, again, quotated, within quotation, vitality, innovation, linguistic mix, and cultural identity. So he declared that these new varieties of Englishes are liberated English, which are molded, reshaped, acculturated, redesigned for the new forms of vitality, innovation, linguistic mix, and cultural identity. The research on world Englishes has flourished extensively since it initiated a paradigm shift in the 1980s. The research on world Englishes predominantly focuses on linguistic features of the varieties of Englishes that have emerged in outer circle and expanding circle. The main point of reference for analyzing the linguistic features of the emerging new varieties of English is the standard English from the inner circle, and the attempt has been to find out evidential proofs of the systematic deviation of the new variety of English from the British English. In addition to the description of Asian Englishes, Khosrow explored the language policies and practices in Asian countries, the impact of linguistic imperialism in the emergence of world Englishes, Englishization of Asian languages, the function of pedagogic practices in the sustenance and promotion of linguicism, and pluricentricity of Englishes against the monolingualism of English across the world. The research on South Asian world Englishes, similar to other research on other varieties of Englishes, at first concentrated on the description of linguistic features, specifically in terms of phonology, morphology, semantics, and syntax. Later on, within the 2 decades, there are research studies in relation to code switching and mixing, intelligibility, language attitude, creativity, linguistic landscape, and so on. Special attention also has been given on the world Englishes that have evolved in the colonial context, where English had imperial history and people suffer from Anglocentrism. The role of globalization and its increasing influence on world Englishes, mobility, migration, growing urbanization, popularity of English for its new liberal promises of better life. All these aspects, in fact, have been explored in the last 2 decades. Researchers have also found the distinctions between world Englishes based on social, cultural, economic, ideological values associated within varieties and inequality caused by different varieties of Englishes. Most importantly, English language teaching and language policies and practices have been discussed intensively and extensively across Asia and the world. Now I will talk a bit about these different features of world Englishes, and then I will talk about the politicization of world Englishes and ideological roles world Englishes now play in different South Asian countries. For example, if I talk about Bangladesh, until now, there has not been any substantial research that may confirm the existence of Bangladeshi English, but innovations and creativity have been observed in English spoken by Bangladeshis, by Rahela Banu, by Obaid Hamid, Mahmud Hassan, Ifat Jahan, and I have also shown certain features of creativity in local Englishes in my articles as well. Bangladeshi English seems to be emerging. For example, code mixing, switching, blending, mixing, linguistic crossing, and transgressions are always observable in spoken English and text in digital spaces. Written texts from business organizations, you must have received all these SMSs from mobile companies like Grameen and other mobile companies. These written texts are in fact full of code switching and code mixing. We see that the similar kind of features in the linguistic landscape of Bangladesh. Linguistic landscape and signs and billboards also carry the examples of code mixing. Following the categories of innovations in linguistic types, Obaid Hamid and Mahmud Hassan identify several types which are observable in other Asian Englishes. For example, they identified double conjunctions, redundancy, fragments, subject drop, the different use of countable and uncountable nouns, present simple replacing present perfect. All these features have been identified by Obaid and his colleagues in relation to world Englishes in Bangladesh. The majority deviation has been observed in the lexical features. For example, Rahela Banu, has identified some system deviations in English, even though she could not claim that a local variety has emerged in Bangladesh. For example, Bangla words such as Hortal, Lathi Charge, Aburod, Eid, Puja have been included to English in Bangladesh. Hossein, Hassan, and Miraz in 2015 mentioned about some Bangla words such as jotils and jhakkas that are uttered in anglicized tone, and words with the phonemes of pa, pa, sa, ka, they are also uttered in Banglicized tone. Based on the observation, Obaid Hamid and Hassan come to the conclusion that there are enough evidences of the process of nativization. Nevertheless, the use of English is growing in Bangladesh, particularly for written communication, although a significant use of English for verbal communication is yet to be documented. In India, Indian English is accepted as the oldest non-native variety of English, which is the second highest spoken English after American English. It has the greater range of functions, such as in administration, commerce, education, science, technology, media, judiciary, legislature, literature, pop culture, and interstate and international communication. The three-language formula of the India's national policy makes teaching of Hindi, English, and a modern Indian language, preferably one of the southern languages in the Hindi-speaking states, and Hindi, English, and the regional language in the non-Hindi speaking states compulsory. The three-language formula intends to secure the maintenance of the mother tongue and national language, strengths of regional languages, integration of states through a lingua franca, and an access to international sources of knowledge and mobility in the era of globalization. In addition, the popularity and presence of English in India vibes of the economic development, social mobility of a huge number of aspiring Indians moving from a wide range of lower classes and middle class, and the success of the Indian diaspora, English to be one of the important causes of their success. The winning of international awards such as the Man Booker Prize by literary artists or the massive success of business process of outsourcing, which occurred because of Indians' sound competence in English, as it is popularly believed. English as an official language and a second language is extensively used in administration, law, and education media. The status and the function of English in India have been identified by Sridhar and other people. Indian English in reality does not exist as such, Indian English, because it is an abstraction, because Indian Englishes include the varieties of Englishes, such as Pidgin English, Bearer English, Boxwala English, Chichi English, Babu English, and so on to Queen's English. There are also some varieties of the Indian English based on mother tongues and variations based on accusational background and proficiency. The English of those speakers who attended a convent and mission school, the English of people who studied in an English medium school but not a convent school, and people who studied in regional language medium schools. There are various features of Indian Englishes which are distinct in their phonetics and phonology and morphology, lexicon, overtly polite diction, innovations, allocation differences, idioms and cliches. In Nepal as well, we see the same sort of kind of linguistic features of Asian Englishes, but it has a different life trajectories in Nepal, as English was not introduced first by the British colonizers. Instead, the local Nepalese elites, the Rana oligarchy, Jung Bahadur Rana, the first Rana prime minister to be precise, first set the English medium school based on the model of the British education, namely Dunbar School, the palace school for his children after his return from England in 1850. The initial establishment of English medium schools across Nepal, later on was done exclusively for the children of the Ranas, their relatives and associates. The objective of the exclusive English was to ensure the monopoly over the power and authority of sociolinguistically and culturally unique breed of supporters of the elite regime. The language policy is distinctly different from South Asian countries. I will briefly talk about Pakistan as well, and then perhaps I'll go to because of the time constraint, I'll go to other important dynamics. So similar to Bangladesh, there has not been substantial research to prove that Pakistan has any specific variety of English. However, some features are commonly observed in the Pakistani English, and others, differ based individual context and person and interaction. Nevertheless, Pakistani English is a convenient term to show a range of variations observed in the English based on the linguistic borrowing from Punjab, Urdu, Sindhi, Pashto. Since these languages are significantly used in different parts of India and Afghanistan, they seem to carry some common features of Asian Englishes. The phonetics and phonological features, morphological and syntactic and semantic features are identified by Tariq Rahman. Pakistani English has features with Indian English, but stands unique for its Islamic values, elements from Arabic and indigenous cultures. Sri Lankan English, I think I need to give some examples from Sri Lanka. They're very interesting, specifically in relation to coconut. Yes, for example, collocations of the word coconut, rice, and tea tell an interesting story about Sri Lankan English. If we look up coconut, we find in dictionaries, in British or English dictionaries, we'll find that coconut matting, coconut milk, and coconut shy are the words found in standard British dictionary. It does not have the word coconut tree, a common word in many varieties of English. In standard British English, coconut tree is referred to as a palm tree. And standard British English dictionary, coconut milk is defined as the liquid inside a coconut. However, the liquid inside a coconut is in fact the coconut water in Sri Lanka. Coconut milk, by contrast, is a liquid made by squeezing grated coconut with water, are basic ingredients of many Sri Lankan curries. Apart from coconut tree and coconut milk, the word coconut is also found in wide variety of other collocations in Sri Lankan English. For example, coconut attack, coconut estate, coconut husk, coconut oil, coconut sambal, coconut scraper. The bottom line is, all these varieties of Englishes do have their own features, and they do have their own functions in their own local context. So let's talk about different approaches to English in relation to world Englishes. There are various prominent approaches to English, and it is important to talk about these approaches in relation to world Englishes. The first one is linguistic imperialism. There is no doubt that linguistic imperialism is a strong paradigm based on multidisciplinary approach that critically evaluate the role of English as a language of colonization and globalization. Linguistic imperialism problematizes the standard language paradigm, which endorses the inherent superiority of English as a language, specifically standard English spoken by native speakers. It questions Crystal's glorification of English as a global language. It also draws attention to how English linguicism was enacted in colonial countries through coercion, trade, missionary expedition, and gunboat diplomacy. In the current post-colonial era, English has become the new imperial language, and linguicism is ensured through consent by the army of linguistic missionaries from the UK in the form of English language teaching practitioners through UK and US expansionism. In addition, Philipson has identified the historical imposition of English and its role in the extinction of minority languages, the penetration, the fragmentation, the marginalization, and supremacist ideologies and hyper-accentuated role of English as a global language also do not address how English evolves amidst the complexities of globalization and current local conditions. For example, if we accept English only as a source of segregation in the new colonial global polity, as we see in Philippines or Nigeria, Tanzania, or Kenya, or South Africa, or India, or Hong Kong, will not see how the colonized rework the relationship by using the master's tool to deconstruct the master's house. Vaish has shown how a disadvantaged urban poor community, which has historically been linguistically subalternized or de-enfranchised, has improved life chances and is able to participate in global economy because of English. For the community, English is the agent of decolonization. Linguistic imperialism has little to say about the ongoing momentary negotiation of English. It also does not address individuals' aspiration, interests, intentions, and desires as realized in everyday language use. Linguistic imperialism draws attention to the clear-cut role of development discourses that forefronts the English language teaching industry, serving the vested interest of various stakeholders. However, linguistic imperialism does not create opportunities to explore the language practices or the aspirations of English language consumers at the grassroots level, and how these consumers make their ways through nationalistic and developmental discourses, specifically when they want to increase their overall economic sustainability. So linguistic imperialism does not either address the dual positions of the government. On the one hand, its role in asking financial assistance from the international donor agencies for the development of the ELT industry. On the other hand, its role in taking steps to protect the purity of the national language from the corruption of the English language. Paradoxically, linguistic imperialism is that promotes the establishment of linguistic and cultural diversity may on the downside work in favor of linguistic and cultural homogenization. There is therefore a need to go against the strong nationalist stance, just as important to go beyond the linguistic imperialism paradigm. And world Englishes, in fact, does that. World Englishes tend to reestablish the efficacy of local varieties of English, unraveling the local appropriation adaptation of English. For example, by recording the detail how post-colonial Indian English differs from the standard English in phonology, semantics, syntax, culture, has identified how Indian English is enriched by native similes and metaphors, rhetorical devices, culturally specific translations of proverbs, and idioms and speech styles. In a similar vein, Rahila Banu in Bangladesh or Obaid, Ifat Jahan, all of them have attempted to identify common linguistic features in the English of Bangladeshi speakers with reference to standard English. However, the world English's approaches seems inadequate in the sense that it becomes specifically problematic because the approach tends to identify the local varieties of English by frequent reference to the standard English. Then again, there is an assumption of an existence of a monolithic standard, as the reference point is the norm providing inner circle countries where English is spoken as a native language. This approach seems to marginalize the creativity in local languages, although the opposite has been claimed. Methodologically, because of the language-centric analytical tools, world Englishes seem to insufficient in addressing the socio-cultural dynamics of language use. So, so if you think about these limitations of methods in and approaches in world Englishes, what has been done? There are different paradigms that have been suggested. For example, in the line with the thinking of world Englishes, English as a lingua franca has been attempted, and it was given by Jenkins and Stuttelhofer. They wanted to give validity to non-native speakers' varieties of English, their uses and users, and reduce the effort that learners exert to learn native Englishes. The promoters of English as a lingua franca view, this movement can be considered as a change of direction from the dichotomous relationship between native and non-native speakerism to the use of monolingual speaker of English and bilingual speaker of English or expert user of English. According to them, English as a lingua franca epitomizes the spirit of globalization and polycentricism. It is not prescriptive, but a reaction to prescriptive language, such as standard English. Even in English as a lingua franca in movement, they came up with a certain certain list of lingua franca core for language teaching. This also shows that English as a lingua franca suffers from the same pitfalls of world Englishes, even though it may appear to be more pluricentric and pluralithic as opposed to monocentric and monolithic. Stuttelhofer herself has commented on English as a lingua franca and post-colonial Englishes are very different realities on the ground, and presumably finding a lingua franca core for different South Asian countries and teaching them in the classroom may minimize standard English ideologies, but this will not address the complexity of linguistic ideologies that arise from the historical and political presence of English. Going beyond this, contradictions of homogeny, heterogeny, and pluricentrism, Pennycook, in fact, Alistair Pennycook in 2008, therefore suggested going beyond this national and international framing of English, as we have observed in world Englishes and English as a lingua franca. In his notion of language as a local practice, Pennycook acknowledged the significance of linguistic imperialism, but simultaneously suggested redefining the notion of language, community, and post-colonial identity, keeping under consideration how they're realized in every language, everyday language practices. There are certain strengths in English as a local practices, and perhaps in some other time I'll talk about it. You can also look into the translingual approaches. These are in fact these are addition to the world Englishes approaches in order to minimize the interference of standard English. But let's talk about the results of world Englishes. So much has been said and done about world Englishes, about English as a lingua franca, English as an international language, and then now we have translingual movement, we have transglossia, so many terms in relation trans. But what is happening in reality? Language and education planning in the region of South Asia, in fact, we are biased towards the powerful national language and the international global language, the standard English, with little or no recognition of world Englishes. That is the reality. There is no recognition of world Englishes at the grassroots level, specifically at the policy level. English language teaching has phenomenal growth in South Asia. English is a language of the imperial colonizer, the British monarchy. It is the language which can be commodified. The commodifiability of English has made ELT so much indispensable in the linguistic market that Philipson has compared ELT practitioners with English missionaries, promoting the colonizers' English in the name of better life chances. The overall quality of English education in the public education sector in South Asia has always been considered dubious. If you think about India, Bangladesh, Nepal, in all these countries, the standard of English education across South Asia is a source of social division. The affluent in the society enjoy the high quality English education with the support of foreign trained teachers and materials from the inner circle and efficient participatory and discovery-based teaching methods and approaches. Whereas the middle class and poor struggle to ensure a decent education within minimal infrastructural supports. Even in Pakistan, we see the same picture. No existence, no talk about world Englishes, but the standard English is there. So the reality is linguistic diversity is more visible today, yet increasingly disparate. Languages are equal, yet language hierarchies prevail. And these observations are made by Garcia. Hybridities in multilingual practices and in identities are old, yet awareness of them has increased. Tensions between state-imposed homogenization and real-life multilingualism can occasion the closing or curving out of spaces. English is everywhere, but not the world Englishes, the standard English. So there is a disciplinary contradictions between, the research findings and the actual reality at the grassroots level. I will just summarize what I have discussed. I have 1 minute left. In conclusion, I want to summarize that world Englishes, even though empirically proven to be effective for the decolonization and de-eliticization of English, development of students' literacy and knowledge, sensitivity and communication in intercultural communication, and the empowerment of students, but it has become highly politicized because of the strong presence of monolingual biases and ideologies and negative attitude towards world Englishes and idealized language policies and practices in South Asia. As a new liberal commodity, standard English has been given priority as a medium of instruction, which unfortunately does not promote pluricentricity and diversity in the education system of South Asia. Instead, EMI levels down the linguistic diversity in classrooms, and the world English movement also has fallen short to bring about changes to the policies and practices of ALT in South Asia. In other words, the ethos of world Englishes promoted by the academics and researchers since 1980s have yet to be recognized in policies and practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Just I need to inform our audience here that Professor Shaila Sultana, ma'am, has to leave early today due to an emergency. Now, I'm not sure whether she can give at least, 5 or 10 minutes, ma'am. Is it possible?
Yes. I'm sorry that I have to leave today because there's a death in my extended family and I have to be with my relatives, and that is why I won't be able to stay for long. However, I think I will be here. I can be here for 5 or 6 minutes if you think that I can take some questions now.
Yes. Now I'm going to open the floor. If you have any question to ask to Professor Shaila, then you can ask, please.
There are a couple of questions in the chat box.
Chat box, okay. Check.
And Shamshad sir is also here.
Yeah, hello everyone. So well done, Shaila. Sorry to hear about the death of your family. Right?
Yes.
Okay. There's a question that Mr. Ashim Paul has asked. Although English is not one nation's asset now, still we have to follow certain standard languages for exams like IELTS, TOEFL, and so on. Isn't the notion or prospect of world Englishes questioned or at stake?
All right. As I have mentioned, that there is a certain gap between the academic research studies and policies and practices. So there are more necessity of having conversations about these issues. The translingual movement, in fact, has been very strong in this regard, and we have seen that in certain schools in New York, translingual elements have been accepted as resources, as linguistic resources in classroom. In certain states in the USA, in specifically the projects that are run by Suresh Kanagaraja, in those projects and in his own classes, in fact, he welcomed the use of different linguistic resources of all the different speakers in the writing process. So I think with this, collective effort, gradually we will be able to ensure the existence and the attitude change towards world Englishes. And there are other certain constructive work needs to be done. For example, I've identified that there is, in research, through this research, that there are only several, acceptable dictionaries on Indian Englishes. But there are so many other world Englishes. There aren't any acceptable English dictionaries for these varieties of English. So perhaps these sort of initiatives are needed as well. Lots of conversation with the students who are the future of the country and the world. We can have critical conversations about these issues, and so that their attitude can be changed and they can value their own linguistic identity, their world Englishes, whatever varieties they speak, so that they can be very productive and positive when they become important stakeholders. So lots of discussions still need to be done, or else, this Baj Khosrow wrote his thesis in 1965, and he had his publication in 1980s. And after so many years, we haven't seen much progress in policies and in practices inside the classroom, not a single one in South Asian countries. So it shows that there is a dire necessity of more conversations and more movement. And I hope this translingual movement can also, address the policymakers across the world and bring about positive changes to the policies. Yeah. So still we need to work on it, Oshim.
Ma'am, one more question we have here. Sakina, she asked that, thank you for the chance. Is it possible to conduct a study of world Englishes in relation to religious identity? I would like to know if there is any recommended previous studies, and if you may have recommendation about the most relevant theory of identity for this kind of topic in educational context.
All right. Okay.
Ma'am.
Sakina, what you can do, you can leave your email address so that I can send you some references. But definitely it is possible. For example, as I have mentioned, that Indian English is an abstraction. There are a variety of Indian Englishes in India. And in fact, lots of research studies have been done in relation to different types of Indian Englishes. And when they did the research, they also found out different variations according to the education background of people. So I believe definitely you can conduct a research to identify whether the localized varieties of Englishes again varies according to religion. It's a highly welcome topic, I must say. And I do believe that there will be differences. From my understanding of language so far, I do believe that there will be differences as well. Yeah, but I haven't come across any specific research as such in relation to variation of any specific language in relation to religion. But as I say, this is a new ground. Go for it, Sakina.
Yep.
And I do have certain references. You can always email me so that I can share those references with you.
Thank you. And I can add here a little bit regarding the model, new theory or model. Snyder's 2007, the model that proposed, it actually incorporates identity as well, which the previous one, I mean, Kachru's model actually could not identify. And the dynamic model of Snyder is actually incorporated this identity. And I mean, he actually proposed 5 stages for world Englishes that you can have you can read. And that one actually incorporated identity here. Ma'am, I had a question, just a very quick question. Ma'am, language policy and world Englishes, I mean, just if you can comment on that. I mean, this is, I mean, it's perhaps the most important thing, I mean, to develop a world Englishes variety. If you take the example of Malaysia and Singapore, for example, Malaysia could not reach to the stage number 5, where Singapore has already reached stage 5 in the dynamic model of Snyder's. I mean, it's primarily due to the language policy. I mean, what do you think?
So language policy, you know, I think that, you know, the need has to be, you know, bottom up.
Yeah.
So
and more multi-level approach. Yeah.
Yes.
More multi-level.
Yes. So it should be coming from the bottom. And at the bottom are we, the people who are working. So since we are aware of the existence of world English, it is more important that we try to bring about changes to the practices inside the classroom, and eventually create platforms where we can talk about it, so the policymakers will have to listen to us. It is not going to happen in one go. You see, as I have mentioned, this research has been done since 1980s. Now we see certain changes in certain context after 30 or 40 years, a certain level of changes in certain practices. Then again, language policy, you don't see much changes in the language policies across the world. If you look at the language policies, they're quite static. They're still quite monolingual, even though in Nepali, if you look into the language policies of Nepal, they say that multilingualism and multiculturalism is the main ethos of the language policies. But again, if you go to the practice, if you go inside the classroom, you'll find that, if you go to the research studies, you'll find that this policy is very much multilingual, multicultural in words. In practice, it is very much monolingual. So I think that it has to be done from the grassroots level. We need to work together collectively in order to create that awareness, not only amongst the general people, also amongst the policymakers. There's a certain, as you must know that our government has recently initiated the introduction of primary education in indigenous languages. So it will take time to be implemented appropriately, but it shows that there is a certain positive change in the government's attitude toward languages. So it has to be from the bottom, and lots of discussions and conversations, and we need public intellectuals. Another issue, the researchers, we sit in the ivory tower of research castle, and we do our research, and we become very happy that we have got this #1 tag of of this and that, but we need to, and I'm also one of those people who live in the ivory towers of the researchers. I have to come back, get down to the get down from the ivory tower and write for the common population, and the newspaper, popular media, in fact, should be our target in order to bring about changes to the practices and eventually to the policies.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, one last question, just very quickly. We have a foreign attendance here, so let's see. I mean, Shaktivel, I asked that present days we could see uses of idiomatic expression and slang words as formal and advanced English, which has been considered informal for ages. How can it be treated? This is our last question for you.
All right, again, this is very much, it very much depends on the context. Usage of idiomatic expression and slang words as formal and advanced English. I don't know where it is accepted, not in our context. So perhaps in certain contexts, where the monolingual biasness and the structured or the values and we have in relation to languages, perhaps that have become a bit fluid and flexible. But in the context like South Asian countries, I don't see any idiomatic expression and slang words accepted in formal and advanced English. So it is a very contextual matter. In some contexts, it may be accepted, provided that those contexts are quite fluid and flexible, which accept this sort of transgression. But countries like South Asia, we are still very structured, and it's not yet so fluid to accept all these transgressive linguistic acts in formal domains.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you, ma'am. I think we don't have any other questions right now. So thank you, ma'am, for staying even after your presentation. I think if you want to leave now.
Okay. So I just want to say to Shahriar, it's a great miss that I won't be here. As I have mentioned that I have a family crisis and I have to attend it. So definitely I will listen to the recorded video. So all the best to you, Shahriar.
Okay, thank you, no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for listening and thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you so much, Shaila.
Yes, bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Shaila. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, it was really thought-provoking, right? So thank you, ma'am. And now it's really my pleasure to introduce our second speaker. He's one of the renowned and senior applied linguists and academics of Bangladesh in the field of applied linguistics and TESOL, Professor Sharia Haque from East-West University. And let me just read the professional biography of Professor Shahriar Haque. Professor Muhammed Shahriar Haque. Professor Muhammed Shahriar Haque, PhD, is the Executive Director of East-West University Center for Research and Training and Professor at Department of English, East-West University. He has published numerous scholarly articles in peer-reviewed journals, including Multilingua, Journal of Cross-Cultural and Interlanguage Communication, and International Journal of Comic Art, as well as book chapters published by Springer Nature and University of Wales Press, among others. He has co-edited 3 books: Prostitution, Women, Society, State, and Law, published in 1997, Constructing Identities in the Malaysian Media, published in 2008, English Studies and the Marketplace, more recently published in 2018. Furthermore, he is editor of the peer-reviewed East-West Journal of Humanities, as well as producer and assistant director of documentary film Life After Grey, which actually in 2015 he produced. His research interests include critical discourse analysis, film and media studies, teacher education, educational technology, and photojournalism. Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome you among us. And would you like to start now?
Okay, I get what, 35 minutes?
Approximately. If you
okay.
need a little bit more, we have time for that as well. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I need to share my screen. Okay, is it visible? Hello, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Okay, yeah. Okay, so the thing is, I wanted to focus on CDA, critical discourse analysis. One of the reasons is if you look at applied linguistics and say TESOL or linguistics in Bangladesh, particularly in private universities, you'll see that discourse analysis is more common. Even in public universities, I mean, particularly in private universities, discourse analysis, we are much more familiar with that. And CDA is actually a branch of discourse analysis. However, say in the early 90s, late 80s, it kind of, came of its own. And particularly in England, at Lancaster University, by a professor called Norman Fairclough, and then others later on. Well, together in a way, Norman Fairclough, Ruth Wardeck, and then Van Leeuwen, then Van Dyke. These people came together and started Language and Society, and then other journals kind of evolved. So they initially started critical discourse analysis. And you can even get an entire master's degree in critical discourse analysis if you want. When I did my PhD in Malaysia, I mean, I did it in terms of CDA. Even CDA in Malaysia was not offered as a core course. One of the reasons I was attracted to East West University after my PhD was because at East West, not only was CDA offered, it was also offered as a core course in the MA in English program. And I was kind of astounded by that. Initially, Professor Shoidullah was the chairperson, and he had actually gone to England, and he did a course on critical discourse analysis, and he was intrigued, and therefore he introduced that in the MA program as a core course. And until now, among all the private universities, CDA is only offered by East West University. And in terms of the public universities, one of our students, he's now Dr. Mehdi Hassan, he's a faculty of Jatiyo Kobi Nazrul Islam University in Trishal. He introduced CDA at the master's program as well. But other than that, CDA is not available in Bangladesh. So basically discourse analysis. And even when discourse analysis is taught, CDA isn't emphasized that much, critical discourse analysis. But I want to talk about this and also why it's relevant, particularly in the 21st century in that sense. I mean, if we think of the 21st century, okay, hold on. Yeah, if we think of the 21st century, basically we think of age of information. Information meaning, say, undergraduates who are studying right now, you were born maybe towards the end of the 20th century or beginning of 21st century in that sense. So you wouldn't know that much about the 20th century that much. But with the 21st century, you have technology and you have social media. So there's lots of information available, so much information that you might at times, be bombarded basically with too much information. Now, when you are bombarded, you have to decide what is authentic, what is not authentic, because you have the biggest library in the world, Google. But more than 50% of the information there might not be authenticated. They might be, just, unsubstantiated information. So how do you navigate through that? That is very, very important. And this is very important because you have prevalence of fake news. Look at the American election when Trump was being elected, when he was also trying to be re-elected. What kind of role did social media play? What kind of role is social media playing? And Mark Zuckerberg is constantly, you can say criticized for the fact that he's thinking of money over ethics in that sense. When you have so much information, it's important to decipher through the information and find out how can you navigate and come to a conclusion regarding what is authentic, what is not authentic. For that, people who study library science, they will say you have to be digitally literate, I mean, if I ask my students, where do you get the information from, your news? I said, from Facebook. I mean, Facebook is like, going to a pastry shop and trying to form a habit. You don't get, I mean, if you go to a pastry shop, you're not going to get your balanced diet of, say, 1 part fat, 2 parts protein, and 3 parts carbohydrate. You're going to get all fats in that sense. If you go to Facebook, I mean, that's not a news provider in that sense. You need to use kind of discourse, either news program or newspaper or news magazine, where you get your balance of news in that sense. But that is in terms of news, but there's lots of other information. So if you think of the revised Bloom's taxonomy, you've got lots lower order thinking skills, which is remembering. I mean, before, I mean, if you think of the SSC exam, HS exam, GSC, PSC, basically people pass these exams with lots low order thinking skills. They memorize everything. That's it. But we need to be thinking of HOTS, the higher order thinking skill, and the greatest higher order thinking skill right now is to be able to create. Before it was analysis, but now analysis is not enough. You have to also be able to create, because in Bangladesh, basically we are, we are good followers. When somebody gives us command, we can follow them and follow instruction, but we are basically not good creators. So at the end of the day, what will happen is we'll be creating a nation of zombies who can only follow instructions and do things. But you have to think of creating things. I mean, if you look at the richest man in the world, who is the richest man in the world right now? Can anyone tell me? Anyone? Who is the richest?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk. So if you look at Elon Musk, you'll see that he is. I mean, I love him in the sense that he is and he gives up, never gives up. Forget about the 40-hour work week, and you have May Day and everything like that. He works from 80 to 100. He's even been rumored to work 120 hours a week. If you want something, forget about 40-hour work thing. And if you can, spend more time, you can achieve your things in half of the time. So anyway, the thing is, you have to be able to create something. So this is where CDA comes in. What is the relevance of CDA? So I'll be talking about that. But before that, I want to talk about what is CDA basically. So I'm not going to go too much into it, because this is not an introduction to CDA, because my intention is to show how CDA can be useful in the 21st century, and in which realms of research can you use it in that sense. So, I mean, this is a basic definition. Like CDA is a system for critically analyzing instances of discourse in order to expose the hidden agenda that may be embedded in a society. Why? To bring about social awareness in that sense. So it can act as a process or system and a method, all those things. But mainly, it does have, it goes after agenda that may not be, apparent at the beginning. Now, if you can detect the agenda at the very beginning, you don't need CDA. It's very apparent. It's the ones that are embedded in the society, particularly in the common sense. When we think that thing is commonsensical, we don't ask questions. We don't ask questions in that sense. However, faith loss, one of the gurus here mentioned that it is more than just that. It deals with real issues. Now, this is where discourse analysis may not always deal with real issues in the society. It might just, you're having a conversation. It looks at turn taking. Now, CDA will not just look at turn taking. It will also look at the power relationships in that turn taking. So, it deals with real issues in the society, and it could look at macro level issues like migration, social exclusion, and shifts in governance, or micro issues as well. And then the other thing is CDA kind of paves the ground for making informed and conscious choices. This is important because quite often we make choices without being very conscious. Why? Because your father told you have to do this. That's it. You don't ask any questions, murabbi in our context, and therefore we don't ask any questions regarding it. Why? Because the teacher told you to do this. You have to be able to make these choices on your own. You can, look at what they're saying and then ask them. And after that, so you can get the information. After that, ultimately, at the end of the day, it has to be your choice. You shouldn't be influenced by someone else. I mean, if you think of a woman in our country, suppose, she is growing up, she has to listen to her father because she wants to be a good, then she has to listen to her husband because she has to be a good wife. And then she has to, if the husband passes away, live with the son. You have to listen to the son. You want to be a good daughter, say mother-in-law. So your entire life you've lived based on the decision makers of other males, dominant males. Initially your father, then your husband, then your son. Yet you have not made any decision. Why? Because you wanted to be called the good daughter, the good wife, and the good mother-in-law. So if you're satisfied with that, then okay, there's no problem. Okay, this is what society expects of me, and then I will do this because I want to be labeled. I want that label. That label is important to me. But if you okay, you may this okay. I mean, and that's what CDA basically suggests in that sense. So objectives of CDA. So basically, it does quite a lot of things. It exposes, it kind of unearths hidden agenda, empowers, it kind of targets inequality, then it emancipates, it liberates, it kind of fights against uninformed or ignorant downtrodden people. And Fairclough says that it actually takes the side of the losers of the society. So CDA is not objective in that sense. And Dyke says CDA is discourse analysis with an attitude. It looks for unequal issues and takes up explicitly the position of the downtrodden people and try to make them equal by letting them know about information that they didn't know about before, or maybe they were ignorant about in that sense. Well, useful of suppose it is multidisciplinary, so you don't have to just use it in the linguistics field. You can use it to analyze literature, media, politics, global issues, lots of things, because everything has discourse. You are initially analyzing a discourse, and then you're trying to focus on the discourse has a very broad perspective, because when you look at discourse analysis, even look at the definition, it'll say basically, texts or conversations, that's it. But in CDA, discourse would mean much more than that. Anything that communicates in a systematic way can be considered as discourse. So if that way bees dance, bumblebees, if you look at the dance, and scientists have analyzed and look at it, that their dance actually has a meaning. It tells you which one is how far away is the pollen or the nectar. That has a meaning. On the surface level, we think, bees are just buzzing around. That's it. If you look at even attire of people, suppose if you look at your work attire as opposed to a wedding attire, you can see that the wedding attire, especially for women, will easily suggest she's not going to this. She's going to a party. So even that attire communicates with you in that sense. That attire will also tell you that obviously this is for casual wear. That can also be considered as discourse. So the meaning of discourse in CDA is much more broader, and it's not reserved to only conversation. That's it. So you can go into different disciplines. It deals with micro and macro issues as well, and real issues, things that are happening in the society. And I'll give you some examples of these later on. Then it assists in making informed decisions. This is very important, because as I've already mentioned, quite often we go through life without making informed decision. We get the feeling, yeah, we've made the decision on our own. But if you analyze, you'll see that there are so many influences behind your decision. I mean, even if you think of how many people have willingly come to the English department on your own, without being influenced by society or your parents or someone in the family. Did you make that conscious decision? Or are you influenced by the fact that, okay, there are jobs available? Even if it's jobs available, still that's a materialistic choice. You're being influenced somehow. Did you come to the English department because you love English? You want to read things in English and you want to, do things in English, or is it because of these decisions? It facilitates critical thinking. Nowadays, everybody's talking about critical thinking. These are some of the reasons. Now, research in the context of Bangladesh. So I'm focusing mainly in the context of Bangladesh, but the research that I will suggest, these can be done in other contexts as well. Because, I feel that maybe we're having this platform because we want to tell our students and researchers where are the, sites you could actually do research in applied linguistics. So for instance, if you look at, I'll give you some examples from these, like, you can use CDA, the notion of CDA in everyday life, as well as in hardcore research. In everyday life, I mean, buy one, get one free, constantly bombarded with this. During a season, during winter, sales, discounts, things like that. So how are you being manipulated, through these? Then recruitment ads, educational, ads. Then you can also look at use CDA in rape discourse, particularly in our country. If you look at rape in our country, especially on the silver screen, you'll see that it's different from that of the West. Whereas in the West, they try to make it as realistic as possible. That is not possible in our country. So how do they do that? This is done, through connotative, means in that sense. Then if you look at cultural identity, I mean, recently I presented at a conference in IUB, and there was, it was actually on, in terms of 2041, because that is, the government has taken that initiative. By 2041, we will become a developed country. Now, when you think of a developed country, you're thinking, okay, in terms of GDP, capita and all these things. But if we just achieve that, but not in terms of culture, can we say that we are a developed country? So culturally, how open will we be? Recently, you've just seen that, riots taking place because a Quran was placed in a mandir. I mean, if we have this kind of tolerance level, it doesn't matter how much economic development there is. We can't call ourselves a developed country. So I want to look at that as well. And if you look at the cultural identities of, they say, the young urban people, you'll see that they're quite different from our true values. Okay, then, concept of native speakerism. I mean, you can use CDA for that, and for the West marginalizing us, we are marginalizing ourselves in our own country. I'll show you some examples. You can use it to analyze literature. You can use it to analyze medical discourse. These are also part of everyday discourse. Okay, so if you look at this ad, can you tell what's your observation regarding this ad? And this is, part of everyday life. You get to see this. Winter sale, Bata. This is actually taken from, I took this picture in Farmgate. Anyone? Okay, if I ask questions like class, I guess we will not have enough time. Suppose this is the first one, buy one, free one, or discount, 40% discount. Now, if you, obviously, people will not look at the small letters. They'll think 40% discount and then think, okay, everything. So if I buy something for 2,000 taka, I'm going to get 2%, that's 800 taka discount. And then you go into the percent discount. It's a 1%. Then you notice it early and you say up to 40%, maximum 40%. So it can be 5% as well. And something that you would definitely not notice, and this is, given in mobile ads in others as well. At the side, you can see conditions apply. In order to get 40%, conditions apply. If you had known this before conditions apply up to 40, you wouldn't have gone there. But we make these decisions. And when you think of, when you think of, say, things like buy one, free one, which, organization can actually make a profit by giving you 2 items of something, for the price of one. They can. Usually when things are, say, maybe they're rotting on the shelf. It's the shelf life has expired. At that time, they might give you something for free because they think that if it stays there on the shelf, you can't sell it at any price. You'll just have to throw it away. That's when they say, okay, if you buy this, then you get this free. And so normally you wouldn't have bought it, but at that time, when you say buy one, get one free, without needing that, you think I'm going to get something free, and you take money out of your own pocket to purchase that. That means initially you've been made to buy 2 items of something you didn't even need. And CD actually studies this coercive, the power that is utilized through manufacture of consent. You feel that you have made that choice, but actually the discourse seduced you into making that choice. And there are, lots of instances of this. This is very common, before and after shots. In this case, results not typically written in our context, a lot of context, that is not shown at all. It's just like before, after this, and after this. And this is much striking. When you imagine, you think, oh, I try this product, and then I just have to take the supplement, or 4 minutes of exercise a day, and I can have after body. But these are not typical results. You do a study of 1,000 people and use that product. This is not what you're going to get. There is no other way than proper diet and exercise. You're not going to get body like that just by doing 4 minutes of exercise or taking a supplement. In that, we are constantly seduced. If we are overweight, because we're not even allowed to use fat nowadays, it's politically incorrect. If you're huge, in that case, you suffer from mental inferiority complex. You will try just about anything, and you are seduced by things like that. This one, in this case, in recruitment ads, if you have proper qualification and proper, experience, you should be able to apply to any jobs. Now, I'm sure you are in Malaysia. These ads are actually from Malaysia. You know about the mix of Malaysia, that Malay 65%, 24% Chinese, and 7% Indians, and then there are minority groups. Now, when you have an ad like that, Chinese female below 28 years, these have got nothing to do with your qualification. Yet that's the #1 criteria. #1 criteria. Then degree in related field. The degree becomes secondary. Your ethnicity, your age, your gender or sex is the primary requirement. Now you can't control that. If you're a male, suppose you are a Malay, you are say 29, you can't apply for that, even though you've got the right qualification to apply for this. So you are being excluded. And these have been taken from Malaysia, but there are also things like that in Bangladesh. Sometimes they mention only Muslims only. Then what about the other groups in our country? Or sometimes they say you cannot be a smoker. What does smoking have to do with your work ethics, or your work that's a personal habit? Okay, you can't smoke in the workplace, no problem. Why do you need to mention these things? So anyway, so these are also and when these are available every day, you think that okay, it's common. It's like when you think of Animal Farm, the way Napoleon, he talked about Snowball. So after hearing that for a long time, all the animals kind of believed, whatever negative things were being said about Snowball in that sense. So when you actually spread a lie for long enough, everybody kind of believes that in that sense. So for them, it's kind of commonsensical. But for the critical researcher, this is not. You are being excluded. When you think of rape, I mean, obviously, in our context, first of all, I mean, yeah, okay. When you look at, I mean, obviously, rape is bad, and in our context, in the Bangladeshi context, you will not be explicitly shown rape because censor board, and there are lots of other things. So connotatively, you are shown, and in most cases, you are child rape isn't there. In this case, this is Bostir Me Suraya, and then this is the these are shot by shot frames of that thing that initially licking the face, and then Suraya is kind of astonished. She's picking her up, and then there's a struggle, and then okay, she's been raped in that sense. usually in movies, usually the say the heroine is not raped. Usually she's killed or she goes crazy in that sense. And then in this case, in fact, even though she was raped as a child, she actually is the heroine and she lives on. In fact, quite a lot of films, you see that side characters are kind of, killed in that sense. And there are some protagonists or heroines who actually lived. These were made or during the 1971 war or aftermath of that. So to show that, okay, we can accept such people because there's lots of rapes at that time. We can accept illegitimate children as well. But later on, rape has not been, well, the main character is usually not raped. So if you look at that, and I actually did a survey, I interviewed 120 people, and then among them you had people in their 50s and 60s and 70s or even 80s, 90s, and you had young people and the older ones. And one of the questions I asked was, suppose if your son is going to marry, and then you find the perfect girl, everything, she's beautiful, she's educated, she's kind and everything, yet she had an accident when she was much younger. Would you bring that girl into your family? And the older people said, no, I wouldn't. So even though it was her accident, they said no. The younger people said, it's not her fault, it was an accident, and we'd welcome that. So you can also think of the mentality that we have. And I was surprised by some of the responses I found in my own family, the older generation, the fact that they wouldn't accept such a girl. And that actually is reflected in movies, Nongra, this and that, through the sound, through the usage. You can see that even if she is the victim, we victimize them again by the way we approach that situation in that sense. Then cosplay, as I mentioned, cosplay is basically costume play, and these actually happen in Bangladesh, and I took these pictures myself. I mean, basically you wear, this was a DC fandom related event, and therefore that's why everybody dressed up in the DC characters, comic characters. But you can also have play, in terms of, even though it's a kind of Western kind of phenomenon, but the thing is you can also have cosplay based on Bangladeshi characters. Now, for the young urban people, this is very important for obviously a niche group, but this is happening. And then, these people spend their own money, then create their own costumes, and then they perform. And there are competitions as well. So quite a lot of them have been criticized as well, because we are not so welcoming. Now, in 2041, will we have that mind frame of accepting these people? Because these people are actually from affluent families, and if they stay in the country, ultimately they're also going to rule our country as well. It's not all everybody from public universities who's going to take over our society. These people will also take over our society, if not at the government level, definitely at the private level. So in that case, how welcoming will we be? But this is also happening. If you look at the underground culture, you'll see that there's also heavy metal groups there. There's also break dancers there. So they kind of go against our traditional culture. So are we going to, in 2041, are we going to still debate on that? This is traditional culture and this is this culture. I mean, if you ask yourself, what is Bangladeshi culture? Wearing the lungi, salwar kameez and sari. That's not Bangladeshi culture. These existed before the creation of Bangladesh. There's lots of culture in Dhaka that's much older than Bangladesh. Bangladesh is only 50 years old. Dhaka, it's been 413 years old. So most of the regions in Bangladesh are older than Bangladesh. So we have to be very careful regarding what we call Bangladeshi. So soon as we say, oh, this is not traditional, as if, wearing the sari, salwar kameez, and, the lungi is traditional, is Bangladeshi. And then you say, okay, this is Western. The world is not, black and white like that. When you think of the Shingara, Samocha, Fuchka, these existed before Bangladesh. You can't call Bangladeshi. You can call the Bangladeshi flag Bangladeshi because that was created after Bangladesh, but not these things. So you have to be very careful regarding what you say. The older generation will term it in terms of white. This is not traditional. This is, foreign, and therefore it's bad. And these are also other pictures, see even little kids, he also entered the competition. He was bought, his parents to do this. And they have to spend quite a lot of money, sometimes from 5,000 to 15,000 just for a costume, And the reward is sometimes less than the amount you spend. So these are also the nerds and geeks. I was kind of taken aback by the term geek because I always thought of geeks and nerds as, say, programmers, people who are really intellectual but couldn't socialize. But then I found that, no, there's also another meaning of if somebody is obsessed with, these media-related culture, they're also called geeks as well. And you have quite a number of them, particularly in urban context. Okay, I've got 4 minutes left. Yeah, so these are again, pictures from there. So this took place in Jamuna Future Park. And some of them are so obsessed, like this girl, she is on stage in front of everyone proposing to her fiance. They're so obsessed with this, foreign culture in that sense. So this also took place live, and she reversed the role. This is not a role play. This is she actually really proposed to him, and he's crying instead of the other way around. He's supposed to propose to her, and she should be crying. So these people from a very young age have become obsessed with this. And obviously it's a niche kind of, a group, but still you do have these, and you can't deny these. This is also another, this is actually a student of mine. She's Aino, and these are some of her cosplays. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will criticize, yet she did these because she's also a model as well. So their cosplay is becoming quite familiar, and companies also pay them quite well, at least sufficient money for them to take the costumes and have some money left over as well. So she recently graduated from the English department. Okay, so I've given you some examples of these, say, rape culture, then identity, but you can also use it to analyze native speakerism. CDA can be, and there's plenty of literature to look at native speakerism. And in fact, the reason I mentioned this is, for instance, I'm not going to show you the advertisement, but because, then I'll be victimizing an institution. But in our country, like they mentioned, the first university, the only university to have MA faculty members with MA degrees from foreign countries or PhDs from Canada, America, UK, and Australia. What is that promoting? That means native speaker countries you're promoting. If you have degrees from there, it doesn't matter what, whether you have good publications or not, we'll take you in. Why? Because you can, and if you look at recruitment that mentioned, UGC told them to do that, then they've been doing, so that is, and so that's why I'm not showing you that thing. Then again, the only university with MA in TESOL, offering MA in TESOL. In fact, if you go to the website, they say that they actually offer one program that is MA in English, and you can specialize in applied linguistic TESOL or literature. But when I went to America in 2014, I actually argued with their office manager, because office manager was saying that, no, you actually get 3 degrees, one in linguistics, one in TESOL. Then they wrote the first offer. To now, they don't offer. Brack University offers TESOL. Number of universities offer in ELT. But now, until 2021, this university does not offer TESOL as a separate program, but they're advertising like that. What would students think? The target group, they'll think, oh, I'm going to get a degree in TESOL. Nowhere in the degree will it mention TESOL. Then you can also look at literature. I mean, if you think of the opening, I'll just take 2 more minutes. It's 35 minutes is gone. Say Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, considered as one of the greatest irony in literature. I can't remember the exact lines, but basically, if you are a handsome person, you have lots of money, why should you would need to get married. Now, in the Western context, that's because, okay, you've got a lot of money, you're young, you're handsome, why should you get married? But when you think of the Bangla, even though in Bangladesh have that thing, you know, bari gari nari, but when you do have money, when you are established, it is expected, the society expects you to get married, whether you're in your early, mid-20s or even, late 20s. They do you to get married in that sense. So for us, it's not an irony in that sense, but those who teach literature, it's like, okay, that is an irony, as if, one size fits all concept is there. Medical discourse, Shrikant Sarangi, he also, does research in that. If you go to doctor will try to give you 5 minutes, and then, based on whatever he can deduce, he'll give you prescription, that and everything. But in terms of medical discourse, the doctor is to give you a patient 20 minutes hearing to see what your problem is. And if the doctor can suggest something without prescribing anything, then, mention, okay, come back after a week and then we'll see. But instead, the doctors straight away will write this test, that test, and, give you this medicine, that medicine. Why? Because they get commission. They have quotas to fill as well. They don't give you a proper hearing. So if you analyze the discourse between the doctor and the patient, you'll see power play as well. So this is also happening in real life. So basically, these are some of the sites of research that can be done using CDA. I've taken 2 minutes extra, sorry. Okay, thank you very much.
It's perfectly okay, sir. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
We're done. All right, thank you. Wow. Really interesting and thought-provoking presentation lecture from Professor Shahriar sir. Now I would like to open the platform to if you have any question, you can ask now, or alternatively you can write as well. I think if anyone wants to ask directly, if you have any question, you can ask in writing. Anyone? Or any comments, comment perhaps? So, since taking time, let me take the opportunity to ask a question, or let's say, I just want to have your comment on that. Discourse analysis as a methodology of research. In research, we have this particular, analysis that we use as a methodology as well. So, how we can avoid biases. As you also mentioned that discourse analysis at times it has some sort of bias, but how we can, being a researcher, how we can eradicate those biases and can be objective in our research. Sir, you need to unmute.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. In CDA, it's actually difficult because those who do CDA, even the gurus of CDA, they don't actually try to show that it's objective, because as I mentioned, they usually take the position of the downtrodden, the people who are being marginalized, and try to fight, for them in that sense. So they don't want to do that. But in discourse analysis, you can, I guess, without having a preconceived notion of what you're going to find, you can analyze something. Okay, I'm going to, look at this conversation and let's see turn taking. Okay, without taking, any side preconceived notion, and then you can look at that as well. So in discourse analysis, you can, but in CDA, it's not possible. in that sense, because you do look at the issue first. Okay, I know there's an issue here, and with that intention, with that preconceived notion, you go and collect some more data and analyze that with the intention of showing that, okay, this is how people are being marginalized or excluded or given preferential treatment in that sense. Because the reason they do that is to make everyone aware that, okay, this is how you are being taken advantage. Because in society, it's the select few who get to control the discourse. Most of the common people do not have access to that discourse. Suppose you're going to write something in the newspaper. It's the reporters through the editor and through a vetting system, only that. So in the newspaper, if you want to tarnish someone's name, you can publish something, and the following day you can just say, okay, we apologize, this is incorrect. However, the majority of the world would already get to know that this is happened to this person, and they wouldn't necessarily read the following day, okay, there's a mistake in that sense. So the people who control the discourse, advertisers, then filmmakers, directors can do that. As I mentioned, I mean, rape has been shown in a particular way in our society. Why? Because the directors, usually these are commercial films, they know that if I don't do it in this way, then my audience will reject my work. I will not get my money back. So I'll give whatever the audience wants. So you're not going to have someone like Spike Lee saying that, okay, I'm making a statement, and whether the audience watch this or not, it doesn't matter in that sense. So in this case, the control of the discourse would be the director, and the directors might not want to do that based on societal response.
So it's better, I mean, being a qualitative or researcher, like the way we do in qualitative research, we should clarify our positioning at the beginning. It can be one way out.
If you do CDA, I guess you'll have to also look at some of the drawbacks of CDA, and you can mention that this is what CDA does, and then also these are this is the position that the researcher will take, and then you can try to do that, minimize the effects of being biased in that sense. But from CDA perspective, it's difficult to do unbiased research. But from a discourse analysis perspective, you can, because you will not have that preconceived notion.
Thank you, sir. I mean, if you have any question, you can ask, or we can move on.
Yeah, Dr. Sharia, I just have a quick question. So thank you for doing this fascinating topic.
Sure,
all right. So really enjoyed. And I just remembered, when Mahmoud was, so supervising one of our students on medical discourse analysis. And the only reason, she could have access to a patient doctor, discourse was because her father was a doctor, right? And when she was allowed to, observe the conversation between the patient and the doctor. So interestingly, I felt when I was going through the report myself, the presence of the daughter changed the discourse of the father, right? Because the doctor was super conscious, because he was being watched, he was being observed, he was being more empathetic, more caring, and I felt that the data was doctored. So there was doctoring of data itself, because as you rightly said, that a doctor would not give more than 5 minutes before writing a prescription or sending that person to a diagnostic center. But because there was the daughter involved there, so he spoke for 15 to 17 minutes, so showing much more concerns and all that. So as a researcher, so it's easy, when you do a published document, say if I have an article and I'm doing a discourse analysis, even, Bangabandhu's 7 March speech, I do a discourse analysis. It's easier because it's in the public domain, there is no prejudice or perception involved. I go to it, and I analyze text, the gestures, the signs, semiotics, whatever. But how do you do as an informant? So you are given access to a privileged situation. So the power dynamics is already upset. So how do you minimize that kind of involvement?
Sometimes it's difficult. In societies, you cannot do that. Even if the data is available, you can't look at it from a CDA perspective. I mean, so in some cases, you just simply not. I mean, if there are instances that are available, if I do CDA in terms of that, I'll lose my job. I have to look at who do I work for? How is that person or these people connected, ruling party or this party or that party? So there are, since this is recorded, I will not mention any of those things. But in some country, if I want to stay in Bangladesh, I can do that. And I could do work on the exclusion in recruitment advertising because I was not a Malaysian. I was a Malaysian. I could, in fact, my supervisor, who was a Malay, she told, tone down your thing, or else this might not be accepted. So it was originally sent to reviewers. One reviewer from Malaysia, two were from Australia. The Australians, they were thinking that okay, you're abused, and they mentioned that up, but supervisor was saying that tone it down, or else this will not be accepted. So in some societies, I cannot do certain things. I mean, if you look at say the history books under different governments in our country, you'll see how history is being revised. Now, if you analyze some history, so that's one thing, but you can't again emphasize that because revision is history, that is there. So there are lots of other discourses, but it's very difficult to do such research while staying in the country. Now, if you're outside the country, you can look at that. That's a different thing. So I have to be very careful. Like, I did a one year course from Pathshala, on professional photography, not to take photos, but I want to do research in terms of photographs as well. But there are lots of things I cannot do directly because they'll connect me directly with Shoidul Alam, and then that becomes a problem in that sense. So there are some things that you cannot just touch. I mean, but there are other areas, okay, like if you work on gender or sexual abuse, these things you can do it on that. But those are directly connected with politics. It's very difficult to do it while you're in the country. And this is not just in our country, even in America. I mean, if you support certain, people in America, what's going on in Israel, if you support that openly, you'll be marginalized in many cases, whether it's a celebrity or other thing. And a lot of celebrities are not supporting that, even though inside they might feel different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's say, for example, when I was doing my PhD, so because of our post-colonial orientation, you create white writers, right? Mm-hmm. And doing that, I support, I don't like the hint of irony that you have, so you're being disinterested in leveling coursework. So again, so a white man not being happy, the way I am presenting a fellow white man. So yes, so the power dynamics works, so it's nebulous, it's not that easy, and there's no short answer to it. Yeah. I agree, fully agree.
Dr. Shaila was saying about language studies and religion. In fact, I published a paper in Multilingual. It was Discourse of A. It has to have a good meaning in Arabic, not in Bangla. My sister's name is Shapla. So so Shapla in Bangla, and then Nilufa in Arabic. So Nilufa would be okay, Shapla might not. And then meaningful name, meaning what? Sometimes some of these things don't have any meaning. Suppose you think of Alif. What meaning does it have? It's an alphabet. Mim. But it's in Arabic, no problem. Now, if you choose a good name in Bangla, that could be problematic. And how do we think of choosing names? Automatically, either some religious person will suggest, or automatically when we're thinking of a good name, usually we might think of a good Arabic meaning, not a good Bangla meaning, not a good English meaning. So again, indirectly based on our upbringing, we have been influenced to choose names like that. Yet we fought for our language. So the language Bangla has a significant meaning to us. Yet when it comes to names, the country isn't that much important. It's the religion that is important.
Yeah, and I also get hybrid naming, like, you have one Arabic and then one Bangla name put together. Yeah, you're right. I agree.
Okay, sir, we have questions here in chat box. One comment, thank you so much, sir, for enlightening presentation. Is there any book you want to suggest to begin with CDA? I'm really interested to know more. Any suggestion for books that you can suggest?
There are the recent ones. I'm not sure, but previous there are. I mean, the Language and Power. That's pretty old, but quite a lot of things that's been suggested by Fairclough. It was originally written in 1989. Then it's been updated. I think the most recent one is second or third edition in 2013. And in fact, except for one chapter, all the chapters are from 1989. Language and Power by Fairclough. Then initially, I mean, I also wrote a paper that's published in East-West Journal, but that was a kind of introduction to CDA and the rational faculty, because initially I couldn't find any introductory book at that time in 2006 when I joined East-West University. But there are lots of books out there right now. The recent ones might give you a simpler meaning of CDA in that sense. But the Language and Power that deals with quite a lot of basic things of CDA, that's still relevant, by Norman Fairclough. Okay. And quite a lot of materials and books of CDA, they're available online as well. They're available online. Just put CDA and whatever you want. I mean, CDA in the Western context or Eastern context, or CDA and put the keyword, because if you're looking at CDA from a particular perspective, you can get lots of access to CDA materials.
Thank you, sir. So next question from Famida Sharmin. Hello, sir. I'm trying to figure out parallels between a father's love and patriarchy. A father who does not let his daughter to see the outside world. In trying to save her from ugliness of reality, does he become a patriarch? The relationship between my late father and me, well, I love him, no doubt.
The thing is, I think there's no one who loves you more than your parents. It's their upbringing. They were maybe taught how to be a father from the previous generation, and they act in that way. So instead of blaming an individual or father or even a teacher, how he teaches and or she teaches and uses corporal punishment, we have to look at the system. The system is important. You can't point your finger and say that he is a corrupt person or he's acting like that. The way he was taught to be a father, patriarchal society, you have to be the breadwinner, you have to take charge of the family, you have to be the decision maker, and women had played a recessive role in that sense. And that's the way, and he's seeing that this is the way I can be a father, this is the way I can be a man. I have to protect my family in that sense. But I'm pretty sure that if you can have an open and engaging discourse with your father, because quite often we don't question them, or we might think this is biadabi in that sense. If you do have an open discussion and you show that you're asking logical questions, you can actually talk with them. But quite often we might not, because we think that there's this stern man in front of me and I should not question him. But again, you cannot just point to that person and saying that, he's like this or part of patriarchy, because that's the way he was taught to be a father in that sense. And furthermore, exposure can also help as well. Exposure can help. So even by living in Bangladesh, if you have enough exposure to different situations, different identities, you could be quite liberal. Yet you could go to America and you could be as stern as a fundamentalist. It depends on exposure and the way you open your mind. So, but engaging discourse is very important, and quite often we don't have engaging discourse. And as I've mentioned, parents, even if they beat you at times, it's because they are concerned. You can easily say, okay, I don't care at all. And you might be happy with that, but that at the end of the day, you might not. So parents are, very loving, and they do care about, it's just that they have different ways of expressing their love. and it's basically based on, you know, how they were brought up as well.
So can I add to that?
Yeah.
Famita, like, because you're talking about your deceased father, so we cannot have a discourse, but I fully agree with Shahriar that the idea is that, of course, you know, we should not generalize, like, you know, not all parents are the same, just like not all children are the same. The issue of discipline, like, you know, it has to be culture sensitive. For example, when we try to discipline our daughter in the States, my daughter called 911 and police came in, you know, and, you know, so almost handcuffed my wife. Thankfully, she is a diplomat and, you know, got spared. And then, like, you know, the police looked into the refrigerator, looking, like, you know, if there was enough food for her or not, whether we were abusing her or not. Like, you know, so again, it has to be culture sensitive, but people protest the system. Say, for example, the old school teachers, and you know, when we compare ourselves, just that we have, my had, you know, so it was kind of coming from the stage, right? You know, there was no communication whatsoever. You know, for example, the only time I had a conversation with Professor Zilur Rahman Siddiqui was on the Viber board. You know, so we never had a conversation. Now he's a great teacher. He is, like, you know, one of the iconic teachers we have ever had, this country ever produced. But then again, is that a good model of teaching? You know, is that a good model of pedagogy? Those things have evolved. Even, like, you know, I treat my daughter as a friend, but I have my relatives saying that, why do you treat your daughter like your cousin? All right. So you need to maintain a distance, like, you know, so we, you know, so we hang out together almost like friends, we confide in one another, we share everything, you know, so it's a different way of parenting. So things are changing. So the system is also not like something that is static. So it depends on culture, it depends on time. And because you're getting exposure to different cultures because of technology, so you're seeing other types of parenting out there on Netflix, in the social media, like, you know, some other friends posting on Facebook. So you might start, you know, comparing your own situation with the situation of others. And then you might think that, oh, my father is a patriarch. But try to look for the love that Dr. Shahriar mentioned, that the intention is good, is my father trying to protect me? You know, I'll be very honest, because this ULAB, right? So and I had to protect my daughter, you know. So during in between classes, my daughter had to come to my room, you know, sit there, because, and you know, I am a friendly father, and you might interpret me as a controlling father because I was trying to protect my daughter from others, right? So I had that privilege because I had an office room and my daughter could come and sit there in between classes, but I could not protect other children. So you can call me biased, but that's the reality. That's how things are, because I know, like, you know, what kind of messages are being inboxed to her, you know. So what are the things that some of the boys are sending to her? Because we are friends, so we share things. And when I know that, okay, so there is someone in that class, and you know, very careful, right? So again, so there is no single form to define and describe everything. It is context specific. So because your father is gone, so my prayers for your deceased father reflect on those ideas, which is important than the controlling aspect.
Sir, may I say something?
Yes,
Please do.
please.
Actually, if I remember my father, actually, I was closer to my father than my mother. And when he was gone, one day I was talking to my mother a lot, and she said, "Why are you talking so much? You know, these days you have started to talk too much." And I just burst into tears because suddenly I realized that he was my best friend. And I had to talk to him. And I said that I never talked to you this much because he was there. Well, he was the friend I always had.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, exactly. So just reflect on those things, and it's the system, but then again, the system is not a static system, so it has to be site specific, context specific, and also time specific. So yeah, and realize that, I think you will find your own answer.
Like Professor Shamsul
Yes,
Murtaza mentioned that his daughter called 911. I mean, I remember when I was in England, my relationship with my father was kind of need to know basis. It's not like we were buddies. And if you saw us talk, even a normal conversation, you'd think that we're arguing in that sense. So, every time I got angry, I used to threaten him in England. I'll call 999 because in England it's 999, and then social services will come and this and that. But, the way he was taught to be a father was to be a stern father, don't do this, things like that. And then when he went to England, he did the same thing in that sense. I mean, we were never given homework until class 8. In England, we stayed, you should stay in school from 9 to 4 p.m. And you went to school empty-handed, you came back empty-handed. But my father was concerned, and then he went to the headmaster and told them, why don't you give them homework? In that sense, because he was thinking from a Bangladeshi context, because that's the way he was brought up, and he had to struggle among his 8 or 9 brothers and sisters, and he's the only one who made it to to England, got a PhD and got a scholarship, Convent scholarship, because it was to his own detail. So his way of being a parent was completely different. The way he was raised in the village, and then when he went to England, he still implemented the same rule. In that sense, I can't do that with my daughter. I mean, I have to be so careful. She's giving a. I have to, when she's in the mood, we can talk. When she's not in the same under the same roof, I have to communicate with her through text. I can't have a face-to-face conversation with her at times, but I have to kind of tolerate that. I mean. I could never abuse my father, I mean, directly, openly in that sense. But, we get that here, and we have to think that, okay, she's someone from this generation, she's more aware and she is more socially active as well, because if she says something on social media, then that would be a problem in that sense. So we have to tolerate, and we think that probably this is a phase. Hopefully she'll grow out of it. So the parenting situation is very different, right now. But again, based on the exposure as well that I mentioned, because quite often I see that some of students say that my father won't let me do this, but love you every time. It is because they're concerned. If we had a more, say, safe society, they might not have asked that. But they know that the society isn't so safe, and that's why they're inquiring. And furthermore, the government has also mentioned that after Holy Artisan incident, poke your nose into the affairs of your children to see where they go, who they talk to. And that kind of, again, gives us less freedom to, give them freedom. We need to know, where they're going, what they're doing and who they're seeing, because the young minds could also be taken advantage of by, older people who again control the discourse, and they might sit them into doing things.
Thank you, sir. I think we are running out of time now, and I think we cannot take any more comments or question right now. Yeah. So I'm really glad we are and honored at the same time that we have Professor Shamsul Murtaza sir here with us, Honorable Vice Chancellor and Dean of School of Social Science. Sir, thanks for joining us. And will be really honored if you can say a few words and can close this inaugural episode of DEH Lecture Series.
No, thank you so much. So just a correction, I'm the Pro Vice Chancellor, so I'm the professional one. Okay.
Sorry.
So yeah, you need to have another discourse analysis on that. Okay. So right. No, thank you, Moshir, so for thinking of this series. This is amazing, the way you have designed it and the way you have planned all the speakers. And this couldn't have been any better to have, so Shaila and Shahriar, so all the SH, Shamshad, so all the SH, on the same stage. So that makes things really interesting, because this is a great way to start this lecture series. And what different ways of looking at the way language is taught in Bangladesh. So discourse analysis, and then we had translingual and world Englishes to begin with. So it's a shame that Shaila had to go because of death in the family. But I listened to her talk, so I was sorry, I had another meeting, but I had an opportunity to listen to most of the talk that she gave. And of course, I listened to Dr. Shahriar, and I attended Dr. Shahriar's lecture on CDA earlier. I am always fascinated by his research. So he is one of the so most serious researcher. So you can tell so he's getting involved in Pathshala, so the film The Grey. I was told that our colleague Wafi was involved with that film, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing my MA at IUB, Wafi was my classmate. In fact, that Life After Grey, that was our class project. That was
right.
Our class project.
Yeah, because the moment Wafi saw that poster, so he texted me saying that, so do you know that I was involved with that Life After Grey movie? Yeah. Anyway, so interesting, so small world. But these are important topics. So world Englishes, especially when we talk about the effect of English, the hegemonic role of English, and also when you have this compromised version of ELT that is being forced onto us. So it's very important that we realize that what is English studies all about. And at the same time, we need to realize that, we can play a complementary role. So we should not pit one against the other. So this language camp versus the literature camp. So we can actually do things, and this is a great testimony of that thing together. So kudos to the organizer. So thank you, English department, Arifa and the team. Thank you, Moshir, for thinking of it. And Dr. Shahriar, so look forward to listening to your other talks and seeing your articles in the future. Thank you so much, and thank you, dear audience, for hanging around and for your insightful questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks to all of you that you have joined here. Thank you, sir, for your lecture as well. Thank you so much. Sir has joined in a very short notice, in fact, sir. I wanted to add because last week I communicated with him, but he did it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sir, you have to unmute. Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I would like to thank you as well as Professor Shamshad Mortaza, because despite being the pro-Vaishnava, he actually attended this, because usually he's very, very busy. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. Okay. So we can sign off now. All right, then. Thank you so much.
You can turn off you can end the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Okay, then. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.